Today's podcast is sponsored by the Association of Mature American Citizens. It's the only conservative alternative to AARP. Go to amac.us/Carter. Dr. Anthony Fauci. Did you guys get chills right now? Like it's scary. Like every time you hear his name, you're just like, so another vaccine, something he's going to say is going to change the whole entire system in America. We're all going to be left without a job. It's like crazy. We're going to have to wear 20 masks. Nobody knows. And remember Dr. Birx? Remember her? Deborah Birx, head of the COVID task force. Remember that from the Trump administration? Well, I have somebody on the show today that is going to give you the inside scoop of what was happening in the White House, in the Trump administration in 2020 with those clowns. And it's Dr. Scott Atlas. He's going to tell you what was going on, how he was basically battling Dr. Birx and Dr. Fauci just to try to get the truth out to the American people. And who inside the White House was stopping that from happening? Why, even now, we are like under the spell, literally the spell. He's like a witch. He's a sorcerer of Dr. Fauci. Like, it's weird. I picture him with a sorcerer's hat and a big sorcerer's cape, you know, like kind of hypnotizing us into this craze, right? It's not that I don't believe COVID isn't real. It's very real. I had a friend that almost died from COVID. My 53 days in the hospital, my friend Gary Brugman, he almost did not come out of that. Thank God he did. And we've been barbecuing ever since. But he was literally at death's door. I'm not talking about the fact that we're not dealing with a very real virus. What I'm talking about is how the policy has affected our nation. Not only has this virus been detrimental, but the way that our elected leaders and the bureaucracy handled this has harmed more people than anything we could have ever imagined. And Dr. Atlas is going to explain that. He has written a phenomenal book. I have not been able to put it down. I am literally almost done with it. It's A Plague Upon Our House, my fight at the Trump White House to stop COVID from destroying America. And believe me, there were people that went after him. And you know that. And I know that. They wanted to cancel him. They have tried to cancel him. And he has not allowed that to happen. He has written this book. It is brilliant. And you all have to read it. Please follow and subscribe. Get all the links at SaraACarter.com. That's SaraACarter.com. And while you're there, sign up for our email list so you don't get shadow banned. I don't want you to get shadow banned. I don't want to be shadow banned. I want to be able to communicate with you. So go to SaraACarter.com and sign up there. I promise you, I will continuously send you the top stories. I won't inundate your mailbox with emails, but I will get the stories to you directly. Facebook, we can't trust them. Twitter, we can't trust them. You know, to allow these stories to exist, to allow you to see them. So I want to make sure that you are up to date with everything that we're doing. Folks, Mike Lindell, he is not only my friend, but he's the inventor and CEO of MyPillow. And he has been keeping a really close eye on the recent supply chain issues. And he wants you to know that MyPillow is in stock with no delayed shipping for all of their products. That's because the MyPillow product is 100% made here right in the USA. And they have built a huge inventory. Think about that. Hiring Americans, distributing in America. You're going to get your presents for Christmas. How great is that? Your daughters can get their slippers. Your husbands can get their slippers. They can get their MyPillow pillows. They can get their Giza Dream Sheets, which are my favorite. Your dogs can get a MyPillow bed. It's really, really cool. You get almost everything you need right there at MyPillow. But in order to get this special, you have to go to MyPillow.com. You got to click on the radio listener specials, and you'll get like 40% off all my slippers. And listen to this. 50% off all MyPillow mattress toppers. They are amazing. Enter the promo code Carter, CARTER, or call 1-800-685-7221 for great MyPillow specials. That's 1-800-685-7221. Use promo code Carter, CARTER at checkout. Save now just in time for giving the ultimate gift in comfort and the best deals of the year on all MyPillow products. You know, I want you to listen to this clip. Fauci says it's not a matter of if, but when the definition of fully vaccinated means you've had 3 shots. This is how insane this the policies coming from Dr. Fauci, who, by the way, yes, was under the Trump administration and part of the task force, and now is continuing to drive us all mad with his hypocrisy and I don't even know, confusion under the Biden administration. But listen to this really quick.
This discussion's been going on for a bit, and I was just kind of, with this data coming in this morning, I'm kind of stuck with, is it a matter now of when, not if, the definition of fully vaccinated changes?
You know, my own personal opinion, Kate, is what you said is correct. It's going to be a matter of when, not if.
It's going to be a matter of when, not if. I know, because he is continuously thinks he is the wizard. He is the wizard, guys. He's the guy that, you know, everybody was looking at this big face up in the sky, right? Remember, like in The Wizard of Oz? And I am the great and powerful Oz. And he's moving his little machinery behind the scenes. And really all he is that guy. He's that guy in a little cape, you know, running around with a wizard's hat, just so excited to be public. That's all he really is. He made a mess. Just read the Wall Street Journal about what a mess he made during the AIDS epidemic and how he politicized that. Just read about it. I don't even know where or how this all happened, like how back then Dr. Deborah Birx and Anthony Fauci became the leads in deciding and what the policy, the federal policy of COVID-19 would be. But it is a shame. It is a shame. You know, do you believe in the science? So if we believe in the science, and even if we've had the vaccinations, I mean, and we are not, you know, going to transmit it as much, or we're not going to be able to be killed by somebody else who, you know, obviously that's what they're saying, you know, get vaccinated so you can live, right? Get vaccinated so you don't end up in a hospital dying or whatever. Does this mean not if, when we're going to be wearing masks for the rest of our lives? Is that it? Because I mean, we're still wearing masks like on the planes. And what is this virus doing? How is it mutating? What will they tell us next? I mean, because I felt like they were just throwing random information at the American public with the lockdowns. Wait until you hear Dr. Scott Atlas coming up. I mean, wait until you hear him. Because he's going to talk about the fact that out of all the Western nations, I mean, we were like the anomaly. We were like shutting down all of our schools, our kids were paying the price for this. You know, people, don't you remember? People weren't even going to the hospitals to get their cancer checks, cancer screenings, heart screenings, basic medical needs met. There was rampant abuse during the lockdowns, both on children and domestic abuse, an increase in depression, suicide rates soaring. Our teenagers were depressed. People lost their jobs, lost their entire businesses. I mean, and here's Fauci, like living it up. I am the most important, I am the great and powerful Oz, and you will have 3 vaccines, or 4, or 5, or 6, or maybe for the rest of your life. But they never talk about the science, do they? It's always fear-mongering. It's always fear-mongering. They don't talk about the realities. They don't talk about the science. It's all about fear-mongering. You know, why stop at 3? Why stop at 3? Remember when I talked about it weeks ago, it wouldn't just be 3, it could be 4. Listen to Pfizer's CEO say you'll probably need 4 vaccines. It does him great because I'm sure the pharmaceutical companies are making a caboodle of bits of money off of this too. Listen.
And at a certain point, I think we will need the 4th dose. I have said that multiple times. With the previous, I was projecting that will be on 12 months after the 3rd dose. With Omicron, we need to wait and see because we have very little information. We may need it faster.
When is too much? And the 4th dose when? Like, I mean, really, since we had the vaccine, it's only been like what, like a year? The 4th dose when? the booster, then the fourth, I mean, this is just like complete insanity. And what does it mean? Because actually Omicron, according to the doctors that discovered it, it hasn't been anything dangerous, really. I mean, it's been kind of like, I guess the effects on the body are much less than what we saw originally. So the virus is actually mutating, but it's mutating for less harm. You know, viruses want to live. They don't want to kill the host. That's usually how it works. Unless it's been weaponized or unless it's like some kind of weird bleeding virus like we saw with Ebola or Marburg or something like that. But with Omicron, I mean, now he's going to base that decision on what now, in like a fifth and a sixth? So are we never going to be able to take off our masks in public transportation? They haven't even explained that one to me. And I'm not saying that you don't get the vaccine. I'm just saying, what is going on here? We've never seen anything quite like this in our country. Well, I can tell you this. Dr. Scott Atlas is going to answer a lot of these questions, and he's going to explain what's going on and why he is so terrified of the direction that our nation is headed in. Look, guys, are you stuck on what to give your family and friends this year? You cannot go wrong with the new comfy underwear, loungewear, and pajamas from Tommy John. I love them. I have those loungewear pajamas, and they're amazing. They're super, super soft cotton, and you can just wear them outside, inside. I mean, they look fine. They look like yoga pants, kind of. They're just so nice, and they're very, very stylish. Get $25 off site-wide. You guys, this is site-wide at Tommy John's. Right now at TommyJohn.com/Carter. You got to put that in. TommyJohn.com/Carter. That's CARTER. TommyJohn.com/Carter for $25 off site-wide plus free shipping. Order now so your gifts arrive before the holidays. TommyJohn.com/Carter. Go see the site for details. And without any further delay, I've got Dr. Scott Atlas, who's a senior fellow in the healthcare policy at Stanford's Hoover Institution. First, let me thank you, Dr. Scott Atlas, for joining me today here on the Sara Carter Show. I know your time is precious, but I'm excited about your book. It's for all of you out there listening. Dr. Scott Atlas's book, like I said at the top of the show, it is a plague upon our house. My fight at the Trump White House to stop COVID from destroying America. You know, there are very few people, Dr. Atlas, who are willing to tell the truth and lay everything out on the line the way you have. So thank you so much. Thank you for your patriotism. And thank you for not being afraid to tell the truth.
Well, thanks for having me, Sara, and thanks for the kind words.
Oh, anytime. I mean, look, I'm reading your book. I already was honest with you. I told you I'm all the way through chapter 17. I'm riveted. I was so upset that I have not actually finished it yet before getting you on the show, but I'm going to get to that point. You know, I'm going to make you tell me what happens at the end. I think I know. But I want to start from the top. Yeah, it's not exactly. It's not a surprise. But what was a surprise to me is your honesty about what was happening inside the White House. And, you know, for all of us laymen out there and people who weren't working inside the White House, you really took us behind the scenes and the relationships that you developed and the frustration that you felt as you were brought in to be a policy advisor for President Trump on probably one of the most incredible black swan events that we could have ever imagined having, you know, at this particular time, which for all of you out there listening, a black swan event is something that you don't expect that happens on a national security level that changes everything. Let's talk about that without giving too much of your book away, but with telling us, when did you first meet with folks from the White House? When did they first reach out to you? How did that all transpire?
Sure. So mid-July to third week, maybe July, I was contacted by the White House asking if I would just come in and meet the president.
And this was
of course,
in...
the answer is, and that was because after several months, I had been writing and doing research about the pandemic since, end of February, early March 2020. So, about 6 months had, 5, 6 months had gone by. I had been doing a lot of writing and increasingly interviews, radio and TV. Several of the things I wrote were basically talking about the fundamental logic of what should be done and what we were doing that was wrong. And of course, we all saw over that spring, summer 2020 that the lockdowns and the restrictions and the business closures and the school closures that were instituted essentially throughout the entire country, with rare exception, were failing. Okay, they were failing to stop the infection from spreading. They were failing to stop the elderly from dying, the known high-risk group. And they were destroying our children, a whole younger generation, sacrificing our children and destroying and literally killing people because of missed medical care, skipped medical care, fear, and the massive economic devastation that specifically impacts lower income and poorer families. And so I was called up by the White House, and I was just asked, well, would you come in to talk to the president? Of course, it's my country. There's no question that anyone, you'd have to be really sort of a very vile person to say no. I'm a health policy scholar. I've been working full-time in health policy, not in medicine for more than a decade at Stanford University's Hoover Institution. That's my job. I happen to also have 25 plus years of medical science background. So I said, yes, I'll come in and meet the president. And that was in sort of toward the end, but not quite at the end of July 2020.
Right. And I can remember, this is what, I remember first seeing you on television, reading your op-eds in The Hill, really thinking, wow, we have a person with common sense, somebody that is explaining to the layman what's going on here, somebody who actually is reading the reports, reading the facts, and laying them out, but going up against a tidal wave, I would say, a tsunami of people that didn't want to hear the facts, people that were just, and I think I almost felt like I was living in an upside down world. Our daughter was kept home from school, even the Catholic diocese, because she at that time was in a small Catholic school. They had wanted to stay open, but then they couldn't. I remember at the very beginning of the outbreaks and everything was on lockdown. Eventually, I think it was in 2020 when they said, look, we're gonna follow whatever mandates, but we're opening our schools and putting our kids back in because this is detrimental. I had parents who I knew, even in Virginia, in Loudoun County, Fairfax County, who were like barely making it because their children were at home and not in school. There were children in the poverty-stricken areas that I remember taking food to children at these homes from the church. And I'm like, well, aren't you supposed to be in school today? Like, aren't you supposed to be inside studying? To some of the kids, I spoke in Spanish to them, and they were like, oh, no, with COVID, we're not. I'm like, well, no, you still have to do work. Kids weren't in school.
Yeah, the problem was this, and you didn't have to be a scientist at all to see the common sense of it. The common sense was, okay, we have people who we know who are at risk, high-risk people, risk for serious illness and death. They're elderly typically, or they have major significant comorbidities, underlying illnesses. And in fact, we still don't hear this today, but 2/3 of people who died from COVID in the U.S. had greater than or equal to 6 comorbidities. Not one, not mild hypertension, high blood pressure treated. That's not what we're talking about here. 80% of people who died were over 65, and the average age of death from COVID is equal to or older than the average age of life expectancy. That's not trivializing it. That's not minimizing it. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that the facts were known back in March, April of 2020 that healthy children, have an extraordinarily low risk of serious illness from COVID and nearly zero risk of death, yet the children were being locked out of schools. And why is that important? Not just because online learning is a failure. It's a documented failure. It's proven to be a failure. And it's not just because people don't have broadband. It's also a problem because anyone who has a child understands that the most important things you learn in school are not from a book. Their socialization, their conflict resolution, their leadership, their physical activity. By the way, lower income families, the kids get nutritional needs. They detect if someone needs glasses or hearing aids in school. And the shocking stuff that was not really acknowledged and still isn't today in the United States, explicitly really not acknowledged, is that almost 300,000 cases of child abuse were not reported in the spring of 2020 because schools were closed, and schools are the number one place where child abuse is recognized, is reported from. And so, it was a heinous, really, abuse of our children. And the United States is the outlier in this because, as you may or may not know, all the peer nations opened their schools in the fall of 2020. The United States is and was the outlier. It is actually child abuse. The policy going on in our country is a disgrace. It's a break, a moral contract that we as a society, as an ethical society have with children has been broken. And in fact, even our vaccination policy, and I'll let you talk in a second. I just want to finish this sentence. I'm sorry, but the vaccination mandates that aim to use children as shields for adults. Children who have, healthy children, again, have extraordinarily low risk from this illness. And we as a society are willing to inject children with an experimental drug. Why? To shield adults? I'm a parent, okay? My role is to shield my children. My role is not to use my children as a shield for me.
That's such an important statement. My gosh, it's such an important statement. It's exactly how I feel. And we have a young daughter, my husband and I, she's only 9 years old, and she had already contracted COVID. I had contracted COVID. My husband did and this was like in 2019 in December, or maybe I'm getting my time frames mixed up here, but it was right before the vaccines came out. And so we, one of the questions, but yeah, so we were like, at the time, we decided as a family, look, we've already had it. We were all fine. We got over it within several weeks. We went on our lockdown, and did everything everybody asked us to do. And I think it is a tragedy what's happened to our country. This is what I want to ask you, because this is what really frightens me. Here we had a White House, with President Trump, who was stating one policy, wanting to listen to you, bringing you on as a policy advisor finally in the end, but had always been questioning all of these the decisions that were being made, not only by the people within his own advisory group, the COVID advisory team, which was led by Vice President Mike Pence at the time, but by others on the outside who were basically bashing him over and over and over again for everything that he said about COVID. It felt like there was a breakdown in the White House where the right hand didn't know what the left hand was doing, or where the president didn't know what the rest were doing. And he was saying one thing, everybody else was saying something else. And it almost felt like there was a wall being built around the president that was unpenetrable as far as like the communication with the public. So what was happening there?
Okay, so I was there for 3.5 months, essentially 4 months. I came at the end of July. After that initial visit, I went back home. I went back home because, honestly, at the end of the day, I think this is worth saying before I answer that topic, which is that at the end of the day, after meeting a bunch of people in the White House and in the advisory side of the president, at the end, I sat down with Jared Kushner that first visit in July, and he said, we'd like you to help the president. Are you willing to help? And I said, okay, but I just want you to know what you're getting here, because I'm not going to ever change what I said, no matter who tells me to, if I'm right. I'm not going to change and sign on to a group statement that I don't believe in. And I'm not going to back up what someone else says, no matter who that is. And that what I meant, of course, was the president, unless I agree with it. I mean, that's who I am. And Jared immediately turned to me and said, that's exactly why we want you. So I was thrilled with that statement. But the problem was the next statement he made was, I just want you to know if this becomes public, they're going to destroy you. And I'm concerned about that. And I was shocked because I'm sort of honestly, I'm still a little bit politically naive, no matter what happened to me, because I don't want to believe that the people in this country, the press particularly, but even average people, millions, are so vicious and vile that they're willing to have people die as long as they can destroy their political enemy. But I said, when he said he's concerned about that, I said, well, okay, maybe I'll go home and try from there, because I wasn't so thrilled about being destroyed. And it wasn't working. And so I came back and a few days later, at the end of July, beginning of August, I started really. And I came in, and what I saw was the following. The president had already been on record saying he wants schools to open that safely. He knew that the risk to children was extremely low, and it's very destructive to keep schools closed. And he knew that the economic devastation was severe. This is obvious. And economic devastation equates with lives lost. That's factually true. It's proven in decades of economics literature. It was a lie, frankly, by people saying you're choosing the economy over lives. It's exactly wrong. It's false. And it's still said today of people who are against the severe lockdowns, but it's lives versus lives. And I wrote a paper with some economists from University of Chicago and elsewhere in the spring of 2020, calculating as an estimate that the life years lost from the lockdowns doubled the life years lost from the virus. And this has been validated over and over again. In fact, even this year now, worldwide, the calculation is 25 times life years lost from the mobility restrictions compared to life years lost from the virus as of the summer of 2021 in the world. So it's been a devastation. And what I saw was the president understood this and would say it in his press conferences, and I and others had input into that. He clearly understood it. But what you pointed out is exactly the problem, was that the White House Coronavirus Task Force set and disseminated the federal guidance. The White House Coronavirus Task Force, the medical side, was run by Dr. Deborah Birx. She disseminated all the written guidance to the states, every governor. She wrote and visited dozens of states. The official federal policy was the Birx-Fauci lockdowns, and that was implemented throughout the year before I came, during my time there, and after I left, and it failed. And so if anybody thinks that lives were lost because of wrong federal policy guidance, they might want to call up Drs. Birx and Fauci and ask them why they advised what was implemented.
Well, this is what's so fascinating to me. You actually had the reports. You went to a specialist at Stanford, Dr. John Ioannidis, I believe, or Ioannidis. Ioannidis. I didn't want to pronounce his name incorrectly, but John Ioannidis, who wrote this phenomenal report, exposing what was going on. You reached out to doctors at Harvard. You reached out to you're a medical policy analyst. You can understand the math. You can look at the statistics. You can see where things are going. And you brought all these facts forward. You even wanted to, and you even presented them to the vice president, to Mark Short, to his chief of staff, to folks on the team. And Dr. Birx and Anthony Fauci basically shut the door on you. But why wasn't anyone else listening? Why did you have a task force? You have the vice president running a task force. You have the president over here saying one thing. You have Jared Kushner in his office, saying, oh, okay, take everything to the vice president. Every time you brought up what's going on here. And you were out there like a one-man band, but with a lot of support, a lot of research at your back. And they still refused on the task force side to do the right thing. And they told the American people lies. And those lies led to more deaths and more problems than had everyone just sat down. So why did they do it? Why did they do this?
Well, I mean, the question why is difficult to answer, but I brought in dozens of scientific publications from all over the world. When I was asked my opinion, I gave the data. The refute was only, I'm an outlier, I was told. They never had any scientific data to refute what I said. They never brought, the doctors on the task force, Birx, Fauci, and Redfield, never brought in one scientific publication in any of the meetings that I saw. Never, not once. I brought in dozens. In fact, I carried them around with me everywhere I went. And that's what a scientist does. You use critical thinking, you assess the data, you're aware of the new research, and you go through and you critique the methods and everything. The only thing I saw were these sophomoric tables and charts that you could download from a public website about cases, okay? That's not data analysis. And the question why, though, it's hard to say. I think there's a combination of possibilities. I don't want to impugn anyone's motives. I don't know motives of people. I only know my motives. My motives were to stop the failed policy to stop the dying, period, no matter what, and that wasn't done. Now, their motives, I'm not sure, but I know that in general, human nature, okay, I'm an adult. I've seen people for many years. People are in too deep. There's a lot of ego involved. People have conflicts of interest. Birx, Fauci, and Redfield, according to Dr. Birx herself, had a pact among them. If any one of them was fired by President Trump, they were all going to quit. Okay, this is a self-preservation behavior of what, in my opinion, of bureaucrats. Birx and Fauci were in government bureaucrat positions for 40 years. I came out of health policy for a decade, as I explained, high-level academic medical science, helping taking care of patients for decades. These people were bureaucrats. Bureaucrats have a different behavior. I'll give you one florid example. Besides that pact to resign, which I wasn't aware of during the time, I didn't just bring in the data. I brought in the nation's top medical scientists. Okay, I brought in to the Oval Office pediatric infectious disease experts, public health experts, virology experts, vaccine experts from Harvard, Stanford, Tufts University, UCLA. That meeting was specifically set up to be able to allow Dr. Birx to attend, and she was asked to attend. And right before the meeting, the day before, she said, I'm not attending. It's not good for her to attend. Okay, now, that's not somebody, that the way science is done, as anyone knows, if you just talk about that, is you go through the data. If you can't stand up to a challenge to what you're saying, well, I think that says something about what you're saying. It also says something about you as a person. You're supposed to be able, science is the debate of the data. Science is that. But to say I'm not coming to sit in front of the President of the United States with a bunch of experts. These experts were not just experts. They were doing the research on the pandemic. Okay? She refused to come. Now, this is an outrage, frankly. This is so, it's such an indictment of someone's thinking to refuse to come. And then even worse, Dr. Birx is on public record as saying, quote, there were parallel streams of information that didn't go through her, unquote. They were coming to the president and she was concerned. She was asked to come. Okay, she didn't come. She refused to come. My job as an advisor is to bring in as much information as possible to the President of the United States. The country should thank God that I brought in these people, frankly. I'm not asking for adulation. I'm asking for people to be critical thinkers. Do they want the president to be shielded from information except that which goes through government bureaucrats? Is that the appropriate way to advise the president of the United States in one of the biggest healthcare crises in a century? People should be really very frightened when they read my book and understand how the information was, they attempted to prevent the president from hearing information. I mean, this is
what
outrageous.
frightens
There's
me.
a tremendous lack of critical thinking, a tremendous problem here in this country, and we can never let this happen again, Sara.
I know, Dr. Atlas. And this is what's so infuriating for me and so frightening for me. And I talk to parents and they're just as concerned about this. You know, there are states like California that want to mandate all children be vaccinated. I mean, this is just be vaccinated without even questioning it. I agree with you. We should be questioning everything. Even when I worked not as a columnist, investigative columnist, but when I was just doing pure journalism in, print papers, and I would question everything. I would question why. I would ask those questions. I would want to inform the public about what was going on, no matter the topic. What frightens me so much, and your book, I mean, really, truly is riveting. And I keep stressing, everybody out there, you have to get it, whether you listen to it on audio, whether you buy the hard, and I'm not pushing his book because I'm trying to push a book or because we've got something going on. I've been wanting to talk to Dr. Atlas about this for a long time. It's a plague upon our house, my fight at the Trump White House to stop COVID from destroying America. The reason why I think parents are so interested in this because people feel like they're being pushed by a herd mentality that we can't even explain, that we can't even question. We have a media that is not doing its job, that is politicized everything. And in the United States of America now, we're feeling, and I'm myself included, pretty helpless on who to turn to.
Yeah, and I think this is very important. Obviously, it's not just the pandemic. It's the big issues that were exposed about this country. Because these issues existed. The pandemic in my view, did not create the issue. The pandemic exposed these deep problems here. There is a tremendous force now used to, and I mean by censorship, by intimidation, by rebuke, by character smears, of preventing the free exchange of ideas. This is unheard of in my view in the United States. I can't believe I'm living in a country like that. And we can never solve any crisis without having a free exchange of ideas. And when people say, when these college campus leaders specifically say, we're for freedom of speech. Really? They're for freedom of speech. Freedom of speech on campus does not only mean you're not fired. I know that their efforts have been successful in intimidating and stopping people from speaking. How do I know? Because I got thousands of emails from all over the country, but I got over 100 emails from medical scientists who said to me, Scott, keep talking. You're saying the truth. We are afraid to step forward for our families. Okay?
Right.
And I'm talking about scientists at major universities, including Stanford University, where I work, including inside the NIH.
Thank you so much, Dr. Atlas, for joining us. It was a pleasure having you on, and it's absolutely stunning what was happening inside the White House and what is still happening now under the Biden administration with regard to COVID. For everyone out there, you guys, we've got to start doing our own research. We got to start opening our eyes and our ears, and we got to start doing what's best for our family. I guess we just can't count on the people in Washington to do that for us. We just can't trust it. You guys, there's a chill in the air. Don't be caught with cold feet this holiday season. Keep yourself warm this winter with Heat Holders. Heat Holders makes the warmest thermal socks around. I've got them for all of my family members, especially my son and my daughter who are living in really cold weather. They keep your feet warmer than just ordinary socks in the coldest conditions. How do they do it? Heat Holders uses a 3-stage process with a cashmere-like advanced insulating yarn that's soft to the touch and brushed on the inside and traps warm air closer to your skin, keeping your feet warmer, comfortable, and dry. That's so important in cold weather. And what Heat Holders says it makes the softest and most comfortable socks, guaranteed. Heat Holders will pamper your feet. Heat Holders also makes hat, gloves, throws, scarves, and so much more for this holiday season. I want you to go to heatholders.com, use the promo code Sara, S-A-R-A, and you will save 15% off your orders. That's heatholders.com. Receive free shipping with any purchase of $25 or more. Give the gift of warmth, the perfect stocking stuffer, and gifts for everyone. Remember to go to heatholders.com and use the code Sara, S-A-R-A. That's heatholders.com. Heat Holders, making life warmer. Remember, you can get all these stories about Dr. Scott Atlas, everything more at saracarter.com. That's saracarter.com. And folks, download the podcast. Make this a weekly thing. Listen, I'm going to bring you the best guests, the most inside information, inside baseball. I'm going to take you there. I'm going to bring Dr. Scott Atlas back on because I realize, my gosh, even 30 something minutes with him was just not enough time to dig deep into what is happening, what was happening in the White House at the time with the COVID virus and with the task force. So thank you again for being a part of the Sara Carter Show. You know, it means so much to me to have you here. I look forward to having all of you back listening this week. We have some great guests coming on the show. And by the way, Merry Christmas. Happy Hanukkah, even though it's already passed. And I look forward, and happy Ramadan to everyone else out there. Again, thank you for being a part of the show. God bless you, and God bless our great nation. Today, I'm joined by Rebecca Weber, the CEO of the Association for Mature American Citizens. It's also known as AMAC. Explain the differences. What makes AMAC superior to AARP, beyond the fact that we don't agree with their leftist ideology?
What makes us so unique is that we truly do take our marching orders from our membership. Before we go out and about and advocate for any issue, we do consult with our AMAC members, and we do that through a variety of ways. But that really makes us very different, where AARP stood in support of Obamacare, even though their membership was largely against. AMAC will stand in support of our membership. In addition, Sara, we offer benefits. We offer benefits just like the AARP. Ours are better because we offer choices. For example, you can call AMAC for your Medicare, and we're not going to do a one-size-fits-all one plan. The AARP endorses United Healthcare, whereas AMAC has its own trusted in-house licensed insurance advisors that are working for AMAC, stand for our mission of faith, family, and freedom, and then go about offering real choices. We do a lot of things like that that I think make us very different and make us, quite frankly, better.
Rebecca, thanks so much for being with me today. I'm honored to have you and AMAC as a sponsor for the Sara Carter Show. You know, for more information, folks, visit amac.us/Carter.